Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. It is official. Benhard Janse van Rensburg has been called up by Steve Borthwick and will link up with the England squad after almost completing his 5-year residency in the UK, making him eligible to play for the England, but will not face the Springboks in July. However, if the Boks were to play against England at the end of the year in the Nations Championship playoff series, then he could very well take on the side that he represented at a junior level, but basically has not been involved in Rassie Erasmus's plans over the last few years, despite the incredible form he has shown, particularly for the Bristol Bears. And he has now closed the door on our Springbok call-up and has gone the way of playing in England and could very well make the World Cup squad, I think, for next year in 2027 down in Australia and potentially go on to represent England for quite a few years, given his age profile. But the question is, should he be allowed to represent England? And what do we think of the 5-year residency rule? Before we get into it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, there is the England squad, all the clubs over there. And it's a decent squad. It is a good squad. Some very nice players in there. And he sticks out a bit, doesn't he, with that very long surname. But it's deserved. And I think as South Africans, I hate it when we, for example, we take it personally, as if he has just decided, no, he doesn't like South Africa and whatever, and he wants to represent England and he wants to make England win a World Cup, despite us, inverted commas. Because I don't think that is the case. Benhard Janse van Rensburg, I think, had he been called up in the last few years, would have definitely made himself available. And has probably been waiting for that phone call. And he's been in some terrific form the last few years. And I'm quite surprised, to be perfectly honest, that he was never really on the radar, or never seemingly on the radar, for Rassie Erasmus and his coaching staff. But he has been in the UK for 5 years. He went over to originally join London Irish, now plays his rugby for Bristol Bears. And whilst he will not be available for the Bok test on the 4th of July, he could make his full debut against Fiji a week later. So just too soon to be able to take on the Boks. But he could also potentially play against the France 15 on the 19th of June, which is a non-cap game. It's not an international game. And as a result, it doesn't count as a test match, and he could potentially play. And Bristol have just come off the back of a pretty big defeat, to be honest. They lost by almost 60-odd points against Northampton Saints over the weekend. But he's had another strong season. And they've had to actually make a special appeal to World Rugby to get dispensation to consider him, because he played 21 minutes for the SA Under-20. And at the time, this is a very interesting loophole, at the time, the SA Under-20 and the Junior Boks were considered the official B team or A, like South Africa A, they were considered the official B team of a nation, which means that playing for the under-20s would actually qualify as a cap. So because of this, he basically became ineligible to qualify for England based on the residency rules, and the RFU actually had to go and requested a dispensation from World Rugby and argue that it was unfair to bind to South Africa for what was a 21-minute appearance. And they did get it through, and he is available for it. And I think that Borthwick's looking for new blood. He's looking for something new as well. And I think that he does offer something quite unique. He knows a hard-hitting centre, grasps really hard. And it's an area for England that they've struggled. They've not had consistency in their centre pairing and in that midfield. We've seen Tommy Freeman, for example, playing at outside centre. Over the years, we've seen Owen Farrell have to sort of go in there. And I think that, some players, even like someone like a Freddie Stewart has been tried there. And there's some good players in and around that England squad. But, Seb Atkinson's in and around. If you look at the squad over here, you got a Henry Slade, for example. But I think that it's a position where post your sort of Tuilagis, the likes of that, they haven't had too much consistency, and they haven't been able to have a consistent midfield pairing. When you think that Damien Delindi, JC Kriel, and Nakanya have all partnered basically for a record number of appearances, that's the consistency the Boks have had, and that's why Benhard Janse van Rensburg has not been able to break into the Boks, because he's basically been competing against South Africa's highest cap centre pairings ever. And on the flip side, you've got an England side which are looking for centres, and he very much does fit that bill. And I think we need to be happy for him. I genuinely, I've always said this, I think we need to be proud of our South African exports that go on to represent other countries and that go on to play at the highest level. I don't look at Paul Willemse and think he turned his back on us. I think it's really cool to see how we can produce players. Piers Koeman, Duan van der Merwe. I think that we should be proud of the exports that we have. And I think that, a lot of these players sometimes go overseas. I'm saying South African players, a lot of players go to different countries where they feel they can potentially make it. I don't think that's ever really been the case for South African players. I think they've gone overseas where things haven't quite gone their way over here, looked to try and sort of secure bigger contracts, looked to looking after their families, trying to set up a career, and then if things have really gone well, then they've made it. And Piers Schoolman, for example, he's a British and Irish Lion. John van der Merwe is a British and Irish Lion, and they've assimilated into the culture. They've really embraced it. They resonate with Scottish people, and as far as they're concerned, they are as Scottish these days as they are South African. And that's what's, I think, quite good about a lot of the players who go over there is they kind of assimilate into the culture and they don't feel like they're just, they're not just flying in for the internationals. They live there, they've moved their families there. And for all intents and purposes, they are the same nationality which they live in. So I'm excited to see what he can do because I think that he's going to have a cracker of a career in international rugby if he can get going. He's 29 years old, so turns 30 next year. He's got 4 or 5 years ahead of him. He could potentially make 2 World Cups. And I think he's been a player who's long overdue playing at this level, but because of the technicalities, obviously not being on the Springbok radar, has not been able to do it. So interesting to sort of see how he goes. What do you think? What do you think of the rules? Do you think it should be allowed? Do you think it shouldn't be allowed? I personally don't have an issue with it. I think it is a bit of a loophole to basically bind him to South Africa. Not a loophole, but it was harsh for him to basically not be able to make that change despite barely having represented South Africa. So I don't really mind they got the special dispensation. And at the end of the day, we back ourselves, the Springboks, to be strong enough to beat any team. And if he's surplus to requirements, then theoretically, we believe we've got better than him or better suited options. And so theoretically, we shouldn't miss him, inverted commas. But I'm keen to see what he can do. And I'm very excited to see what he can do when he plays against us one of these days. But what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.